From the art of the deal to keeping it real. Live from the Simply Vegas studios, it's The Power Move with John Gafford.
Back again for another exciting episode of The Power Move. I'm your host, John Gafford. To the left of me, Colt, Dr. Facts, Amidan. Fact check.
We don't believe anything Chris says anymore, so now we brought a computer to fact check.
He's brought a computer into the podcast.
He's smarter
and
than
he's going to fact.
Smart man.
We're going to start fact checking and looking up definitions for all these words that
I don't
understand.
even know how to spell this stuff.
I already told you I was a mountebank.
And that's how it's going to be. Yeah. And with us always is the counselor, Chris Connell. How are you, counselor?
Living the dream. Getting my head kicked in today, but talk about that.
Getting your head kicked. You know what? That sounds like we could just go with that as a topic as it was. But man, there's a lot to talk about today. A lot of things we're going to talk about on the podcast. Talk about things we learned this weekend from the Clever Summit, where I was lucky enough to be a speaker and be there, which was great. We're going to talk about some little things that have happened in the media last couple of days. Mike, I don't know, maybe Elon buying Twitter, maybe Melvin Capital getting absolutely smoked betting against the meme stocks. And, we're going to talk about maybe how to figure out who you want to be and what you want to do. And I know that seems like a little bit of a deep topic, but I think we're going to, we got Colt here. So anytime
Super
you can go deep when you got Colt.
We going existential or are you talking about just professional?
No, just professional. I don't think we're going
smart.
like you want to save the universe. I think that might be a little too deep for us as we go along, but that's it. Before we get started.
I had a lot to speak on that.
I know.
I'll hold on.
Well, if you want, Colt, we'll go wherever you want to do. You know how that is. We'll go wherever you want.
The answer is 42. We just have to walk it back now.
That's just got to walk it back to that. So this weekend, man, I was lucky enough to speak, like I said, at an event called Clever Summit. It's a Cody Sperber's event, Cole Hatter's event at MGM. There was about 2,500 people, I guess, in person. Another couple thousand online. The lineup was just ridiculous. It was, Robert Kiyosaki, those guys. It was Chris Crone. It was Pace Morby. It was Jamil Damji. It was Amy Mori. It was me. It was Nick Marietta. It was, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, big people. Bitcoin. It was Dan Fleischman. It was, I can't even think of it. Ed Milet. It was Robert Kiyosaki, if I didn't say that. It was Billie Jean Marketing. There were so many good speakers at this thing that was amazing. And I was so happy that a lot of our agents here made the investment in themselves to go down there and be exposed to that. And it was really interesting talking to them, hearing some of the life-changing kind of advice that came out of that. It really was. When I go to those events, a lot of people just kind of do their part and then they bail out, right? They just kind of, they do their spiel and then they're gone. I spent a lot of time milling around because, I'm going to take the advantage and I'm going to take the opportunity to learn something.
Right.
That's what I wanted to do. So as we went through there, just a couple of real quick notes that I took from the weekend that I thought, little things that I thought were interesting that I heard and we can talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about was at one point, Dan Fleischman was up there. They were talking about NFTs and metaverse and all of those things. And he was doing a panel. And Dan was telling a story where he said, my 21-year-old nephew came to me a couple of years ago and said, hey, do you want to invest $12,000 in this piece of land in the metaverse? It was a green dot on a black screen. And Dan's like, I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was. And Dan, Dan is a very successful investor, very successful, utilizing his 40-40-20 technique, which is 40% conservative, 40% mid-level, and then 20% complete flyers. Just take a flyer. But he said, I didn't really understand this and I didn't have a good feeling about it, so I passed. He goes, my nephew, about a month ago, just sold the most expensive piece of land ever sold in the metaverse, same $12,000 investment, just sold it for, watch Colt's head pop off, $2.3 million. Same green dot, same black screen. Now, here, hang on a second. Here,
you know what? I've got 4 green dots in my office.
but here's, hang on a second. But here was the lesson from that. Dan goes, I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel bad at all because at the time that it came up, I did not feel good about it.
Right.
So I can't, if I didn't feel good about it at the time, I cannot look back with regret on something that I genuinely did not feel good about at the time. And I thought, man, what a great way to look back at something. Because how often do, we've all had opportunities that have come up in our life that we could have done something and then we didn't. And then you have this massive twinge of regret of what you did. And he was so honest with himself, like, I didn't feel good about that time. I'm fine.
Sure. I mean, you have to have that attitude just in life in general. Just eat you up. What if you didn't turn left that day and you went right and got hit by a bus? I mean, all these things, I should have.
See, that's a negative thing. It's
no, but I'm saying like you can always, but you can turn it into a positive. I'm still alive. I haven't made the poor decisions that ultimately in an alternate universe would leave me dead.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
If you live in the rearview mirror, you're gonna.
Yeah.
What do they say? Comparison and things like that are the thief of joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my life now, if I did this, it's just gonna steal your joy.
There's been like one or two investments. I'm like, shit, I missed out, and it kind of eats at you. But there's been a million investments that don't eat at me at the same time, right? Like, Dogecoin or Dogcoin, whatever. Everybody calls it something different, right? But
it's Doge.
I know, but it started off, people were calling it Dog, right, at the first end. When it was nothing, and I literally tried to put like $10,000 into it this was like 3 years ago, and that one eats me up because I just was so dumb I couldn't figure out how to buy it. But I couldn't. This was a long time ago. This was about 3 years ago when it just starts. It's crazy, but investments. Yeah, you're going to have bad investments all the time.
And you're going to have a bunch of good ones. And if you didn't have the money then, maybe you'll have it now.
Right.
Speaking of people that may have regret currently going for an investment, I don't know if you guys saw this, the open letter from the head of Melvin Capital to their investors that came out today. In case you're not aware who Melvin Capital is, Melvin Capital was one of the big hedge funds that decided to bet against what is now being referred to as the meme stocks, which was like GameStop and AMC. When it was nothing but what was it, diamond hands and the apes, holding for dear life and all that, and these guys were the ones that were shorting those stocks and betting against them. And I guess the bill came due, Chris.
Well, what's funny? The irony is that AMC is actually a really fundamentally good company in a lot of ways because of its other online content.
Yeah.
Like people thought, oh no, he's going to movie theaters anymore. Let's short him. And I'm going, if you look at their PDE, they make money.
Yeah. And I think they're now taking it and trying to run, right? I haven't looked at them, but they're trying to take that capital and run. And honestly, I think it was a good bet, right? I think the unknown of these young kids don't give a fuck about their money was not something people...
And the Robinhood traders who
right,
could.
They didn't comprehend, like, they weren't out to make a ton of money. Now, a lot of people jumped in, but... That main group was there just to screw the system.
Yeah,
the system.
So
I'm an old head, though. To me, this is the death of investing.
Yeah.
All this stuff is the just absolute dawning of pure speculation in the markets. Investing to me, I'm like old school Warren Buffett. Yeah. Find a company that generates positive cash flow, generates a lot of money, really good underlying principles.
With actual fundamentals.
That apparently that makes me a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Invest in companies that actually make sense. I missed the boat apparently.
Well, look at all the giant, even all the giant real estate companies. You've got, they don't want to turn a profit. People are like, talking about OfferPad and Open Door and those big publicly traded companies that are Open Door and specifically, they don't want to turn a profit because as soon as they turn a profit, now there's an EBITDA valuation on that company. Currently their valuation is sky high based purely on speculation.
Growth. It's just
growth. The days of having a Wall Street traded company that turns a profit, you don't want a profit because when you do that, then you're going to have a problem.
It's such a strange time.
Strange days.
Those funds also get manipulated by the market. As it goes
high
down,
frequency
right?
trading and the arbitrages.
As it goes down, right? Like, I'm looking at Prologis. They're down 2% today, which in theory, Prologis should never be down.
See,
right?
This is why you have a computer now, Colt. Fact checking.
I'm liking this a lot.
You can pull up the real data right now.
You sound twice as smart as
he does. No,
I got to take it away. Let me go to TMZ then.
At some point, I'm going to look over and he's going to be watching a Disney movie. I'm confident of that. But until that day comes, we'll be fine.
I could recite Encanto.
I know.
We should just do a whole thing of me singing Encanto.
What cracks me up? What cracks me up? So obviously, we do the podcast because we love it and we want to educate, we want to entertain people. But a byproduct of that is all of my social media. you, which for the last 5 days has literally just been Colt laying on the couch. Everything that comes up on my social media is Colt laying on the couch.
I went to meet John at MGM, and I'm just walking through the casino, and I'm pull up Instagram, and it's just me laying on the couch. I'm like, Jesus.
Looking at your phone, talking about just like what? My wife goes, is Colt in a therapy session?
Every day.
Kind of.
Every day is in a therapy session.
Can we talk about how great T.I. was?
We'll get to T.I. in a minute. But the letter from the guy at Melvin Capital essentially just said in a long, wordy way,
mea culpa.
No, it was my bad.
In legal, we call that mea culpa.
Yeah, my bad. That's really all he said. Got this one wrong. Should have listened. My bad. Half your money's gone. Sorry.
And what are you going to do about it?
And yeah, there's nothing they could do.
Because in order to be in a fund, you have to be an accredited investor. That's what people think. I can just go do that. No. You have to declare. You have to go through these steps and show that you have the money to even go into a hedge fund. So.
Oh yeah, no.
People don't realize they do that, so you don't get taken advantage of, right?
Right.
And it's hard. Most people, you screw
you have the
up
money
big
to lose.
time. You screw up big time if you go to jail and you're using credit investors, right?
Yeah.
Like you're totally defrauding at that time.
Well, no, but that's only if you're doing something. So if I go out and I take a shot on a derivative, let's say I buy some put and I fucked up and it was a bad call and I didn't understand the fundamentals, but you invested your money and you're an accredited investor. That means you were smart enough to know that you were putting money in the market, that you have the money to lose. That's effectively what gives you protections on the hedge fund side. That's why they only take it from accredited investors. That's why large investments are required by the SEC to be accredited through accredited investors, so that you're not taking widows and orphans, right? You're not taking these people that should be on fixed income, right, or that don't have the money to lose their last 50 grand, putting it on black,
which happens more often than it probably should. So yeah, be careful. But back to this weekend. So, lesson number 2 takeaway from all the information that we got was this. I was lucky enough to spend a few minutes alone with Robert Kiyosaki, not in his room or doing anything weird. Just being able to have just one-on-one with the man. Right. And, it was just fascinating to sit there and listen to him. And just like any other great communicator, all he wanted to know about was me. Like
how was he? He seemed
super
to have a
cool,
delivery.
super cool, and I got to tell you, just down to earth and
stylish.
No games, dude. No games. At one point, the 2 things I can remember off the top of my head that he said, to our group, and it was smaller than the whole room, was number 1. He said, and I thought this was an interesting take. He said, I don't remember how it came into context, but he said it was a school teacher. Somebody asked his kid, or somebody asked a kid. They said, "Were the 3 wise men in the Christmas story, were they rich?" And the kid said, "Yeah, they were rich." And the teacher said, "Well, how do you know that?" And he said, "Well, because they gave him gifts of, frankincense, myrrh, and gold. Right. So for them to have that kind of stuff, they would have to be rich." And the teacher said, "No, that's wrong. The reason you know that they're rich is because they sought out the best teacher." And when I heard that, it was like, oh, okay. And the one thing I can tell you, and I'm going to give my dudes, Pace Morby and Jamil Jamji, just such a shout out for this. And
what's up, Jamil?
Yeah, right. There you go. But here's the shout out, man. The shout out is this: the majority of that room is theirs, man. They brought so many people to that event, and when you look at the amount, everybody there was there because they wanted to share knowledge and make people better and share education and do those things. But when you look at the passion that those guys invest in others with, and the level of love that they put into their tribes or their networks or their groups, it's really amazing. And I think everybody else that's there as an educator or as a mentor or somebody in a position where somebody was going to look up to what you do, I think it put all of us on notice a little bit. Like, man, I got to step it up. These guys are, this isn't, and I'm not saying when I go try to help people, it's an act. I'm not trying to say that at all. No, right. But what I'm saying is these dudes breathe it like oxygen.
Right. But Jamil's one of those guys that was going to be successful in whatever he did.
Yeah.
Because you meet him and he's infectious, right? He just so happened to pick something that can be profitable. But have you ever seen his comedy stuff or his skits or his acting, any of that stuff? It's hilarious. Guy's really talented guy. Like he just has that factor, the X factor.
Yeah.
So when you meet people like that, it's when you meet celebrities in real life.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're celebrities, because there's that whole after, therefore, because of. We call it ad veracundium, or I think it's
Google that. Google
I think
that.
it's,
Come on, Colt. Come on, Colt.
What was it?
Adverium. Google.
No, sorry. Post hoc.
Spell that for me.
I self-corrected. Post hoc ergo propter hoc.
See just the threat. The threat.
Post hoc ergo propter
The
hoc.
threat of the fact check has got him correcting himself.
Ad veracundium
I love
is
that.
an irrelevant appeal to
After
a fact
this,
check.
therefore, because of this. Latin.
After this, therefore, because of this. You're saying, oh, he's a celebrity because he's got this thing.
Just stunned.
Post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. It's when you look at those people, you say, oh, well, I feel that they're a celebrity, therefore they're charming. It's like, no, they're charming because and that's why they're a celebrity.
Yeah.
To make it through in that world.
He's using that correctly, just so everybody's know.
Yeah, he did.
He used it correctly.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you a bell. I'm just gonna get you a bell so we can ring it like bing. That's correct.
Right there you go.
That's it.
And just to clarify, an ad veracundium is an irrelevant appeal to authority that has no business being an authority. Anyway, because this concludes our Latin lesson for today. But you meet those people, and like I said, every time I've ever met somebody who's truly famous, and not the ones that do it through academics, those people sometimes don't have the factor. They're obviously brilliant.
The it factor.
They don't necessarily have the it factor, but if you meet a famous celebrities, I met Quentin Tarantino one time. I met a few celebrities, but Quentin Tarantino had one of those things you go, there is no way anybody understands how present you are as a human being until they meet you.
Yeah.
Because I was already a fan, always cool, but he was so engaging and he looked you in the eyes and just all these X factors. Right, I thought he would just be kind of an asshole. I probably had a lower expectation of him than I should have.
Yeah,
and it just had that X factor.
Isn't that always great when you have a low expectation of meeting somebody and then they exceed it? Isn't that great?
Always have low expectations of people.
Yeah. Magic was awesome. He was one that exceeded.
Magic Johnson.
Yeah, Magic.
Are you watching the Showtime? Are you watching?
Watch the first episode and then the kid turned on.
I
gotta watch it.
Super good. Yeah. It's super good. John C. Reilly.
Just about the Bus family, right?
Yeah. John C. Reilly is so funny.
Kills it.
Oh, he's
as
great.
Dr. Bus, dude. Just look at him like, dude.
He plays the dad?
He plays Jerry Buss.
He plays Jerry Buss?
And he's amazing. He's so great.
Great job.
You just totally buy him as like the full-on 70s Playboy, just hanging out at the Playboy Mansion.
Just signing big celebs.
Oh, dude, you just totally buy it.
You'll love it.
I'm going to watch that. It's on my list.
It's so funny to watch. But back to Kiyosaki. So the second thing that I'll say that he said that I thought was really, really funny was, well, not funny, but we're sitting there talking, and it was a small group, and he made a comment at one point, and if you hear this, please don't think I'm being an elitist, but it's the truth. And he goes, this came out of his mouth. He goes at one point, he goes, well, like, people that, because he was talking about people that own businesses create, they create jobs for others. They create for other people. And he was saying how awesome the event was because all of us there were there to help people create. That's what he was talking about. He goes, because this is going to create businesses, which create employees. And then Cody Sperber goes, don't call them employees. They hate being called employees. They hate that. Don't call them employees, call them team members. And Kiyosaki, without missing a beat, goes, no, fuck them. They're employees.
You are an employee.
He goes, fuck. He goes, fuck them. He goes, look, there's two kinds of people on the planet. He goes, there are people that crave security and people that crave freedom. Right. And if you crave security, you're going to be an employee. And there's nothing wrong with that.
It's not pejorative.
Because it's fulfilling your personal need, what you need at the time.
Sure.
He goes, but if you are someone that is craving freedom, you're going to probably be an entrepreneur and create that freedom in your life. He goes, so people that, people and employees know they're employees for a reason because they want security.
Yeah,
and
but
that's fine.
I love employees. Good employees are you're a team member. It's like, oh yeah, then how come I'm not getting the ball? How come I'm on the bench all the time? It's like you have to understand that the word employee is not pejorative.
No.
Literally, it's just a descriptor.
I think the last 10 years, everybody's tried to make employee be such a negative thing, right?
Well, just treat your employees better. And
yeah. But I think everybody thinks, oh, you shouldn't work for the man. You shouldn't do that. You know what? There's a lot of people that need to work and that are great employees. I mean, I deal with it all the time. You meet people and you're just like, whew, man.
My parents were born employees, and they worked as employees, and they were probably two of the best employees I assume anybody could ever have.
Yep.
And in that, when I was an employee, I wanted to be a good employee.
Do you think they learned that from their parents? Like, was your grandmother a good employee?
My grandma was not a good employee.
She was not.
Evil grandma.
Evil grandma.
Evil G. Well, they actually were entrepreneurs. So it turns out they were kind of entrepreneurs, oddly enough.
Oh, went the opposite way.
They had a nightclub. They had a
Did they really?
They had like a convenience store. All the stuff that
really.
Like my grandpa was deputy chief of police.
Oh wow!
As a detective and stuff, they were
Regina?
buying. They bought a nightclub for teenagers. Yeah, no, it's just. They bought a nightclub called the Go-Go 7, and they had live bands playing, but it was for teenagers.
So then a convenience store.
It was they also had that business.
So
that
Regina convenience was paramount.
Well, I mean, convenience.
18 years old in Regina.
That's it.
Great
But
club.
apparently they had an they had a teenage club.
Colt is just giggling like a child, which is so funny. Anyway, sorry. Back
Colt's a father. Colt's a father. He's got kids.
All right, back to your life, Colt. Oh, sorry, Connell.
Colt, just because your daughter's married off doesn't mean that.
That's how it goes. People are like, what? Yeah, okay. All right. Where were we? What were we talking about? Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
We got sidetracked.
Employee isn't a pejorative.
That's what it was. So, man, that's funny.
Are you just looking at memes over there, Colt, too?
I think he's reading dad jokes, which, by the way, I now have a new favorite dad joke. Would you like to hear it?
I would love to hear it.
All right. Here's my new favorite dad joke.
You never have to ask that ever again, by the way.
I know I don't, but here's my new favorite dad joke. I would torture my children with this, and I must have told it to them like 8 times. See, here's my thing, too, with dad jokes. Not only do I tell them over and over the same joke to my kids, I then explain it to them like they don't get it, which drives them insane.
Yeah.
Right? All right, here we go. Ready?
So just so you know, mansplaining is when a man explains something.
Oh, yeah,
okay,
here
I
we
just
go.
wanted to.
That's how you explain it to me. All right, here we go. So here's the question. You ready? How does the hippie polygamist count his wives? 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
That's nice. That's good.
I love
Dad jokes are
Colt,
the
do you
best.
get it? Mrs. Hippie.
Yeah,
I got it.
That's a Colt. He demands play that.
Choking over
Which is
here
great.
still.
Yeah, I love that joke. That's my new favorite.
Oh man, I
I
got
five this morning. Look
Oh,
at
boy.
dad jokes.
Oh, but back to what we were talking about.
Robert, I love listening to him talk.
He was great, wasn't he?
Oh, just so
He
great.
was
And
great.
so straightforward about it, right? Like everybody else, I think, was, hey, be positive, be this, right? And he was just straightforward. He's just old school.
Yeah, he was, man.
And his investment,
no nonsense.
His investment, outlook is very old school too, which is nothing wrong. I mean, I still agree with pretty much everything he said.
Well, I love that, his main point was, he said, I love inflation because I love debt.
Yep.
Which is funny. We talked about, Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey having altering views on that. That was 100% the point, because you look at it and it's like, he says, yeah, if I have debt, inflation shrinks the amount I have to pay back, because that debt is paying for assets that are appreciating.
Yep.
Which makes a lot of sense. It's kind of honestly why also inflation is good for the U.S. government, because we have a tremendous amount of debt. So the less those dollars cost to pay back, or the less they're worth, the better off it is for the country. Weird sort of screw the middle class to save the entire country.
That's
sort of
exactly
way.
what it is, but not a horrible thing.
That was it. And then here was another interesting takeaway that I had. I won't say which of the speakers this was, because I don't know if they want this out there, but I was talking to one of the speakers, and this is a person that I consider a friend. And you know what? I'm going to tell another story. I'm going to tell you a personal story of kind of foolishness. And here's what it was. So I walked up to a friend of mine. I forgot to tell a story. So there's a guy that I know that throws a very large event, very similar to the event we had this weekend. And there was another friend of ours that's, tied enough to that person where I thought they were really connected with it. And this is maybe 7-8 months ago. So this person that's this loosely tied to this other person tells me, hey, I really want you to speak at the event. And I'm thinking, cool, yeah, I'd love to do that. It's another big room with like 2,000 people. I'd love to speak at that event. Cool. I'm gonna get you a slot at this event.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you remember me talking about this.
I do.
I'm gonna get you a slot. I'm gonna get you a slot. So, like a couple of days go by, and I hit the guy up in text. Hey man, what's going on? I need to confirm this. Like, if I'm gonna do it, I want to go all in. I need to make sure I'm super prepared for it. And he hits me back. He's like, oh, hang on, man. We're just gonna move some stuff around. I haven't really heard. We're working on it. So I hit him again. And then I turned into like the thirsty person that's chasing this opportunity. And I'm like, it's too much. Like I get to a point where I look back at my text, like I'm embarrassed by how much I chased this. And and I come to the conclusion, I'm like, well, I guess the dude that's throwing the event doesn't have any interest in me speaking. Right. And it wounded my pride a bit.
Sure.
It did. Now this event was butted up against another event that another friend of mine had. Right. And it was butted up, same room, back-ended one day later. So I go, or actually my second buddy's event was at night in between the day sessions, right? So a friend of mine was in town from California. He was speaking at said event at night. So he said, go down with me. I said, sure, I'll go to that. Now, first of all, this is an event that I would have gone to just to go mill around. I could have gone for free, probably milled around, but my ego was never going to let me go down to that main event because they don't want me to speak. If I'm not going you invite me to speak and I don't go speak and I ain't going to speak, or I'm damn sure not going as an attendee.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I go down there that night and to the other person's event. You need a whiteboard to follow this story. Sorry. I go to the other person's event. And as I'm standing there talking to the other person, the main guy that was hosting the main event walks by and he looks right at me and he says, oh, I see. You can come down here for this, but you can't fucking come to my event. Like, fuck you is essentially what I got. Right. And he walked off and I was kind of like, well, you know what? Fuck that guy.
Yeah, well.
Right? Yeah. I mean, what do you expect? Right? So I kind of felt bad about it. And that guy was a speaker also at this event that I was at. So I just felt myself, it had been 7 months of some weirdness and of weirdness of going on between me and this cat. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to put that in the rear view. I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to go talk to him. And I just want to explain to him what happened.
Yeah.
And I walk up and I told him a story. You know, this person had invited me to speak and then I chased it too much. And then for whatever reason, it didn't work out with you guys. And then I was embarrassed because I felt like I chased it too much. And then you guys didn't see me as having enough value to be on that stage. And then my pride wouldn't let me come down. And that was a foolish thing. I should have just sucked it up and just whatever and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And the guy looks right at me and says, this is the first time I've ever heard you wanted to speak at that event.
That's right.
He goes,
I could have told you that what was going to happen.
Yeah, he goes, bro, I would have made a slot for you in 2 seconds.
Of course.
He goes, of course I would have. And he goes, and I told him, he's like, oh yeah, that's pretty much part. And it was so true because he called over his other guy. This also helps him with the event. He goes, listen to what just happened. And the other guy just shook his head and was like, yeah, that's par for the course. Yeah. And here I am. So the moral of the story is this. Here's the moral of the story. I was running around for 7 months.
Talk to decision
I wasn't
makers.
good. Well, that's talk to decision maker number one. But never assume you know what other people are thinking about or their opinion of you is. Because chances are you're probably wrong.
Yeah. What's that whole your opinion of me is none of my business?
Yeah, it's none of my business. Yeah. But anyway, back to what I was saying before on the other thing real quick. And then this will lead us into our next segment because we really want to talk about
with more dad jokes.
It's this. We can get some more dad jokes if you want. But here it is. So I'm talking to one of these guys and he had told me last time I saw him that he was going to do an HGTV show, right? Is what he had told me. And this was before COVID started and they were working on it. I said, what happened? And he said, nah, with COVID, the production got stopped and, they really wanted to be, vaccinated and it wasn't my thing. So I just said no and I'm out and there you go, which, believable, whatever. Each to his own, who cares? And I said, are you going to do it? He goes, now it's come back around, but he goes, they want me to, they want it to be a flipping show. He goes, I'm not flipping. Everything I'm doing is buying and holding into Airbnb. I'm not flipping houses anymore. I don't want to be the flip guy. And they want me to be the flip guy.
Train left the station.
So yeah, he's like, I would rather say no than, because he goes, if I say yes to this, I'm going to be the flip guy for the next 10 years. And I'm going to have to be being something I don't want to be for 10 years for the sake of what? Money? I got money. And I was like, wow. And it really kind of hit home, for me, like, who do you really want to be? Because, the topic that I was even there speaking about at this convention was luxury house flipping, of which I am invested with, Nick Marietta, who's a great dude and does a great job. And that's his forte.
Right.
If anything in that department, I'm there as an accelerator. That's my deal with his company, that he's the genius at that. I don't want to be the house flipper guy. That's not what I do.
Right.
And And yeah, it was a really interesting kind of weird deal that happened there. So, I think one of the things you got to know, if you don't know what you want to do and which direction you want to go, like they say, if you don't know to which port you sail, no wind is favorable. So when we come back from the break, we're going to dig deep into Connell. We've done a dig deep into Colt before.
So just these speaking events, I have a dad joke about a speaking event.
I'd love to hear it. Is that what you were looking up over there? Where you make sure you got it right?
I would just make sure I got it right.
All right, got it.
Because I was just like, wasn't there a dad
before
joke
the break?
about
Give it to me. Yeah, give it to me.
Okay, you heard about that scientist who was an absolute brilliant scientist.
Okay.
Who cloned himself so he could be in academia and working and professing while his clone went around doing speaking events for him.
Okay.
You heard about that?
No.
So this clone makes this, this scientist, brilliant scientist, makes this clone to a T, perfect version of himself to go do all these other things made up in the laboratory, except that this clone had an absolutely filthy mouth on him. So he'd be up there talking about quantum physics, be like, and this and the fucking, and the photons, they fucking smash into each other. Just a filthy mouth on this clone, right? And so the scientist's going, I can't have that. And he goes to the clone and approaches him going, hey, I appreciate you going out and doing all this stuff, but you can't do that. You can't do this stuff anymore. You got a filthy mouth. And he says, oh, go fuck yourself. What are you going to do about it? You're not my dad, blah, blah, blah. And so all of a sudden the scientist is just wrought with, worries about what am I going to do to get rid of this clone? Well, he's my clone. I can do with him what I want. So he says, okay, come on, clone, let's go for a drive. And so he drives him in a nice sunset. Hey, let's work it out. Let's chat about this. Go fuck yourself. This clone is just a filthy mouth on him, right? So the scientist is talking, and all of a sudden, smacks him in the head and wraps him up, and he throws him over a cliff. This clone of his, he can do whatever. It's his. It's him. You can't murder a clone. But all of a sudden, right as he's throwing this body off the cliff, a cop pulls up, and the cop is like, "Oh my God, what'd you do? You just murdered that guy." And the scientist goes, "No, you don't understand. I'm a scientist. I'm a world-renowned scientist. That was actually my exact clone that I made in the laboratory out of just organic materials." So the cop goes back to his car and starts writing him a ticket. He goes, well, I just explained to you, I didn't murder anybody. He's like, no. This isn't a ticket for making an obscene clone fall. An obscene
clone fall. We'll be right back.
Stupid.
Hey, it's John Gafford. If you want to catch up more and see what we're doing, you can always go to thejohngafford.com. where we'll share any links things we talked about on the show, as well as links to the YouTube where you can watch us live. And if you want to catch up with me on Instagram, you can always follow me at @thejohngafford. I'm here. Give me a shout.